Sharon Stone, the name that set Hollywood ablaze in the 1990s, was more than just a bombshell beauty or the hypnotic stare that electrified Basic Instinct. With endless legs, a mysterious smile, and a cool, untouchable aura, she embodied both desire and power on screen. But behind the dazzling spotlight, Sharon's life was marked by heartbreaks and tragedies few could ever imagine. In 2001, at the height of her career, she suffered a massive stroke that nearly killed her. She spent months in a coma, unable to speak, stripped of her memory, a devastating fall for the woman who once captivated the world. And yet, the stroke was only part of her suffering. Family losses, years of emotional wounds, and relentless personal battles tested Sharon to her very core. And still, but at 67 in age, when many choose to retreat into quiet, Sharon Stone has become a living testament to resilience. She rose again, transforming pain into power, using her voice and her presence to inspire millions worldwide. No longer just a sex symbol, Sharon is now a symbol of strength, of a heart that knows how to heal after devastation. This video takes you through the stormy twist of Sharon Stone's journey, from glory to tragedy, from heartbreak to rebirth, from a woman on the brink of collapse to an enduring beacon of hope. We'll explore how Sharon Stone turned suffering into strength, and we invite you to reflect. What moment, in your eyes, truly defined her extraordinary resilience? Sharon Stone was born in 1958 in Meadville, a small town in Pennsylvania. The daughter of a factory worker and a homemaker, her childhood was far from glamorous. Instead, it was grounded in discipline, hard work, and simplicity. But even as a child, Sharon was different. With an IQ of 154, she was far ahead of her peers, something her teachers noticed. But that often left her isolated, struggling to fit in. From an early age, she retreated into her inner world, more at home with books and imagination than with the approval of others. Her childhood was also scarred by near-fatal accidents, constant reminders of life's fragility. At age 9, she suffered a serious neck injury while playing. At 14, she was thrown from a horse, a fall so violent it left her in pain for months. And in perhaps the most surreal of twists, Sharon was even struck by lightning, an experience she later described as terrifying, but also life-altering. These brushes with mortality gave her one enduring lesson. Life is never guaranteed. It is a fragile miracle to be treasured. At 18, she left Meadville in pursuit of something bigger. In 1970, she won a local beauty pageant, which launched her into the world of modeling. With striking features, penetrating eyes, and natural charisma, Sharon quickly graced fashion magazines and became a rising face of the late 70s. But modeling was never her true calling. Sharon yearned to tell stories, to step into other lives, to live through art. Hollywood was the next step. Glamorous, yes, but unforgiving. Her early roles were modest. In 1980, she appeared in Woody Allen's Stardust Memories, barely a blink-and-you-miss-it role, but enough to spark belief in herself. A year later, she starred in the horror film Deadly Blessing. Neither role made her a star, but they became stepping stones. Still, Hollywood remained skeptical. To many, Sharon was just another pretty face, and that was a label she was determined to break. Each rejection steeled her. Each small role became practice. Even as her dreams seemed dim against the blinding spotlight of others, Sharon held fast to her belief. These trials weren't meant to destroy her. They were shaping her, preparing her for the breakthrough that was yet to come. And indeed, it was those early setbacks, the painful falls of youth, that forged Sharon's inner strength. What once felt like nothing more than disappointments would later prove to be invaluable lessons, preparing her to face the far greater storms that lay ahead. From a brilliant, eccentric young woman, repeatedly reminded of life's fragility, Sharon Stone was slowly evolving, ready to enter a new chapter where both brilliance and darkness would test her to the limit. Hollywood has always been a place where an ordinary life can turn into legend overnight, and Sharon Stone was living proof of that. After years of persistence with small roles, her defining breakthrough came in 1992 with Basic Instinct. As Catherine Trammell, the seductive, intelligent, and dangerously enigmatic crime novelist, Sharon commanded the world's attention. A single glance, a fleeting smile, could both challenge and hypnotize. And that now iconic interrogation scene became one of the most explosive pop culture moments of the 1990s. But the spotlight came with a brutal price. Basic Instinct catapulted Sharon into global stardom, but it also stamped her with the label of sex symbol. For her, that tag often felt like a cage, obscuring the years of craft and discipline she had poured into her acting. Beneath the standing ovations and the flood of offers from Hollywood, Sharon carried an inner struggle. She longed to be recognized as a serious artist, not just the ultimate seductress the media painted her to be. 3 years later, she got the chance to prove it. In 1998, Martin Scorsese cast her as Ginger in Casino, a role layered with glamour, vulnerability, and destruction. A woman caught in the ruthless whirlpool of money, power, and love. Sharon's performance was so raw and convincing that audiences forgot the provocative image of Basic Instinct. What they saw instead was a powerhouse actress delivering one of the performances of the decade. The role earned her a Golden Globe and an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. It was the ultimate vindication. Sharon Stone was not only beautiful, she was deeply, fiercely talented. Alongside the critical acclaim came financial success, with her earnings soaring into the millions. By the mid-1990s, Sharon was among the most powerful and bankable stars in Hollywood. Yet behind the flashbulbs and endless red carpets, her personal life told another story, one marked by heartbreak. She married producer Michael Greenberg in 1984, but the marriage collapsed after just 3 years. In 1998, she entered a relationship with singer Dwight Yoakam, but that too ended abruptly. By the early 90s, Sharon was engaged to screenwriter-producer William J. McDonald, and for a moment it seemed she had found stability. But in 1990, the engagement dissolved, leaving her once again adrift. Fame and love rarely walked hand in hand for Sharon. Beneath the glittering premieres and the applause, she returned home to an emptiness she could not easily fill. She later admitted that success, rather than soothing the loneliness, sometimes made it worse, because when the spotlight shines too brightly, it can burn away the intimacy of human connection. It was this contrast that defined Sharon Stone. Outwardly, the dazzling star. Inwardly, a woman longing for something simple, a steady love, a quiet family life. Perhaps it was that emotional void that drove her to pour herself so completely into her art, to live, to love, to suffer, and to be reborn with every role she took on. At that point, Sharon stood at the very summit of Hollywood. She was a star admired and desired by millions. But she also knew that behind the roar of applause were shadows unseen by most, and deep down she understood the road ahead would not be only light. Darkness, too, was waiting, ready to test her spirit to its very core. After the dazzling heights of fame, Sharon Stone began to long for something far more ordinary, a home, a family, a quiet anchor in her life. Her marriage to Phil Bronstein in 1998, a sharp, respected journalist, admired throughout the media world, seemed to open the door to that long-desired chapter. The woman once admired by the world as a glamorous icon now wanted nothing more than simple dinners at home, plans for a family, and the sweetest title of all, Mom. In the beginning, their happiness looked like the picture of domestic bliss. Sharon and Phil shared warm meals in the kitchen, dreamed up travel plans, and decorated rooms in anticipation of children's laughter. For Sharon, this joy felt so different from walking the red carpet. She was no longer just the sex symbols of the 90s, but a wife, a woman determined to build a home filled with love. But even in the midst of this happiness, Sharon had to face a cruel truth. Her own body was working against her. She suffered from autoimmune disease and endometriosis, conditions that made motherhood a painful, fragile dream. Time and again, she became pregnant, only to lose the baby. Between 1998 and 2000, she endured multiple miscarriages, each one breaking her heart a little more. The physical pain was devastating, but the emotional torment was even worse. Sharon once admitted that in those hospital beds, she felt betrayed by her own body. The same woman who had played fierce, unshakable characters on screen was powerless in the face of her deepest wish, to cradle her own child. She cried. Phil grieved with her. Together they held each other through sleepless nights, asking why fate had dealt them such cruelty. Yet Sharon was never one to surrender easily. After every loss, she found the strength to rise again, convinced that happiness was still ahead. In 2000, when natural pregnancy seemed impossible, Sharon and Phil opened a different door: adoption. The day baby Roan was placed in her arms, Sharon wept. But these were no longer tears of grief. They were tears of unexpected joy. That tiny boy felt like a gift sent by destiny, an answer to prayer she had almost stopped believing in. Holding him tightly, she whispered a promise. She would protect him with everything she had left. Motherhood lit a new flame in Sharon's life. She discovered was not in fame, but in small, ordinary moments. Rowan's laughter, the sound of his breathing as he slept, the way his tiny fingers wrapped around hers. For Sharon, it was proof that love could bloom even out of brokenness. But the happiness came with its own storms. Both Sharon and Phil had demanding careers. Sharon, still a global star, was pulled from set to set, red carpet to red carpet. Phil, one of America's leading journalists, was buried in deadlines, high-pressure meetings, and newsroom demands. The distance began to grow, not because they lacked love, but because they lacked time. Sharon carried Roan to film sets, trying desperately to balance the roles of international actress and new mother. But she knew every long night of shooting, every trip abroad, stole moments she wanted to spend with her son. Phil, meanwhile, was stretched thin, often feeling as though he and Sharon were two parallel lines. These strains slowly deepened into cracks. To the public, Sharon still sparkled on red carpets. Phil still appeared polished in print. But behind the flash and headlines, a family was struggling to hold itself together. Reflecting later, Sharon confessed, "I thought marriage and children would be the destination, but it was really just the beginning of an even greater challenge." And from 2000 onward, her life would no longer be defined solely by fame. It would be shaped by the push and pull between her dream of motherhood, her duty to her family, and the unseen storms of destiny still waiting ahead. In 2001, at the very height of her fame, with a string of hit roles behind her and a new family just beginning with Phil Bronstein and their adopted son Rowan, fate dealt Sharon Stone the most devastating blow of her life. That September, and at just 43 years old, she suffered a massive brain hemorrhage, a rare form of stroke that left her clinging to life by the thinnest thread. The warning signs had been there: blinding headaches, strange symptoms. But time and again, doctors dismissed her concerns as stress or hormonal changes. She was told to rest, to stop worrying. Later, Sharon would call it medical gaslighting, when a patient's own instincts are minimized and a diagnosis comes too late. In her case, the delay nearly killed her. By the time she was rushed to hospital, blood had flooded her brain, causing dangerous swelling that threatened her entire nervous system. Doctors told her bluntly she had a 1% chance of survival. A part of her wanted to let go. But then, in that moment near death, an image cut through the darkness. Roan, her baby boy, barely a year old. "I thought, if I leave now, my son will grow up without a mother. So I prayed. I fought with everything I had left." The surgery that followed and the days beyond it became a journey across the edge of life and death. Sharon lay immobile, her soul at times feeling as though it had already slipped away. She described what she experienced as a kind of near death, seeing light, feeling profound stillness, before being pulled back. "I died, and I was reborn," she would later say. Phil Bronstein was at her side in those early days, sitting at her hospital bed, holding her hand, trying to give her strength. But reality was merciless. The hemorrhage tested not only Sharon's body, but the already fragile foundation of their marriage. While she drifted in and out of consciousness, Phil was torn between the newsroom, their infant son, and the possibility of losing his wife. The strain turned them into planets drifting apart, colliding only in necessary moments, then spinning back into their separate orbits. By the end of 2001, after months suspended between life and death, Sharon began the long, brutal climb back. But recovery was hardly the right word. She had to relearn everything: how to walk, how to speak one word at a time, how to form letters on a page. Every halting step forward was both a triumph and a reminder that life would never again be the same. As her body slowly regained strength, Sharon looked at her marriage and saw the distance had grown too wide to close. Phil, for all his love, was drained. The relentless demands of journalism, the weight of fatherhood, and the trauma of nearly losing his wife had left him spent. They still lived under the same roof, but the connection that once bound them was gone. Sharon later admitted, "I lay there, fighting to live on one side and staring into the emptiness of my marriage on the other. I realized there are some things you cannot hold on to, no matter how much love you have given." The brain hemorrhage of 2001 didn't just rob Sharon of her health. It triggered a cascade of trials: Hollywood's indifference, mounting financial strain, and the unraveling of her family. Yet in the darkness, she learned to lean on what remained unshakable: her love for her son, her will to survive, and the quiet belief that waking up to a new day was itself a miracle. Then in 2003, still unsteady on her feet, Sharon was struck by another crushing blow. The marriage she had once clung to for hope came to an end. Phil Bronstein, the man who had held her hand in the hospital, filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. A cold, clinical phrase, but for Sharon, it carried devastating weight. It meant the man with whom she had dreamed of family dinners and a shared future was no longer walking beside her. For a woman who had just returned from the brink of death, the divorce felt like being split apart all over again. Sharon confessed that at that time she felt as if she had lost her only anchor to reality. Worse still, carrying the staggering medical bills from her surgeries and the cost of private therapy to relearn basic skills drained her fortune. The golden years of multi-million-dollar contracts from Basic Instinct and Casino were now just distant memories. Between 2001 and 2008, Sharon's recovery became an epic of endurance. It took her a full 7 years to relearn how to walk, one slow, shaky step at a time, across the wooden floors of a rehab studio. Sweat dripping, tears impossible to hold back. She had to relearn how to speak, starting with broken syllables until she could finally form complete sentences. She had to relearn how to write, her hand trembling over the simplest letters as if she were carrying the weight of the world. Without health insurance, Sharon had no choice but to rely on her own discipline, building a routine of private exercises, sheer willpower, and a refusal to surrender. Yet those silent battles weren't enough to keep her place in Hollywood. The industry was merciless, and to many she was no longer in her prime. Roles grew scarce. The phone stopped ringing with calls from top directors. Her income collapsed. The $18 million nest egg she had once saved was swallowed whole by medical bills, therapy costs, and the expenses of single life. Sharon later admitted bitterly, "I lost everything: my career, my health, and everything I had built." And still, fate was not done with her. In 2008, she endured another heartbreak, losing custody of her son, Roan. The trial was long and brutal. Sharon was judged not only as a mother, but as a public figure. Past R-rated roles, artistic choices, professional commitments were dragged out as supposed evidence that she was unfit to raise a child. Even baseless rumors about plastic surgery were weaponized to portray her as unstable. In the end, custody was awarded to Phil Bronstein. Sharon was granted only visitation rights. Walking out of the courtroom, her heart felt crushed beyond repair. In an interview years later, she wept recalling, "I could survive illness. I could survive the collapse of my career. But losing my son, and that was the most painful thing I've ever endured." After the ruling, Sharon sank into a deep depression. The home that once rang with her son's laughter now echoed only with silence. Finances were depleted, her health remained fragile, and her star power on the screen had faded. To many onlookers, Sharon Stone seemed finished, a fallen icon, destined to disappear into regret and obscurity. But Sharon's true resilience lies in this. Every time she hits bottom, she finds a reason to rise again. This time, her drive no longer came from the glitter of Hollywood or the hunger for fame, but from a yearning to live a life of meaning. She began to reframe her story, looking back at childhood struggles, brushes with death, and the loss of family, and realized if she had survived all of this, perhaps fate was offering her another chance at rebirth. In that quiet space, Sharon discovered inner strength. She devoted more time to art, not for stardom, but as a form of healing. She wrote, she painted, she took small roles in independent films, projects where she could pour her heart, regardless of paycheck. At the same time, she deepened her commitment to philanthropy, especially in healthcare and education, believing her survival and resilience could inspire and support those who were suffering. The years between 2003 and 2008 may be remembered as the dark period of Sharon Stone's life. Yet within that darkness, the seeds of renewal were quietly taking root. She once said, I think I've died more than once, but every time, I've discovered a new version of myself, stronger, deeper." From the depths of loss and illness, Sharon Stone was preparing for a different kind of journey, not one built on red carpets and box office numbers, but on family, authentic artistry, and a sense of human purpose. In the darkest place, she found the light to go on. After the darkest years of loss, Sharon Stone chose a different path. She wasn't chasing a return to the top at all costs, but instead set out to rebuild her family and rediscover the simple happiness of motherhood. In 2005, she adopted her second son, Laird, and a year later, baby Quenya joined the family. Each of the three children came into Sharon's life at different moments, but together they became the missing pieces that mended a broken mother's heart. From 2008 onwards, Sharon stepped back from Hollywood's glare to focus on raising her boys. She settled in West Hollywood, in a modest home filled with laughter. Mornings began in the kitchen, making breakfast for her sons, sometimes just sweet pancakes, but always with love. She drove them to school, showed up at parent-teacher meetings, and quietly stood in the wings to cheer them on during school plays. For Sharon Stone, these ordinary moments were more precious than any trophy. As she once confessed, "Every wound in my life was healed the moment I heard my children laugh." Alongside motherhood, Sharon discovered a new creative outlet, painting. Around 2010, she began spending long hours in the studio, letting color and brushstrokes express the pain that words could not. Her works were quickly embraced by the art world, leading to exhibitions in San Francisco, Berlin, and now, preparations for Rome. In one interview, she explained, "Painting is how I say what cannot be said." For her, it was more than art, it was healing, turning the shards of a wounded soul into vibrant canvases. She also transformed her private suffering into a driving force for philanthropy. From 2010 to 2025, Sharon became a committed activist, raising and donating more than $34 million to HIV/AIDS prevention, programs for homeless children, and the building of schools in disadvantaged communities. For her, giving back was a way to repay life for granting her survival. Looking back from 2008 to now, Sharon Stone emerges as someone entirely different, no longer just Hollywood's sex symbol, but a devoted mother, a genuine artist, and a generous heart. Out of the darkness, she crafted her own light, not from the silver screen, but from the way she chose to live, love, and give. By 2024-2025, Sharon had become a living testament to the power of reinvention. Once written off as broken by illness, loss, and obscurity, She has returned to the screen with a new presence, mature, resilient, and brimming with self-assurance. In 2024, she appeared in The Trainer, marking a decisive comeback as an actress. Just a year later, on August 15, 2025, she drew headlines again with Nobody 2, portraying Lendina, a role layered with grit and strength. Echoing Sharon's own journey, scarred but unbreakable. When asked whether she would reprise Basic Instinct, the role that made her a legend, her answer was blunt: good fucking luck. A short, sharp reply loaded with meaning. She no longer needs to cling to her past image to prove her worth. Today, Sharon moves forward on her own terms, defined not by Catherine Trimmel's shadow, but by her own hard-earned truth. Beyond acting, Sharon has even returned to the fashion stage, where her career first began decades ago. At 67, her natural beauty, confidence, and magnetic presence still command every room. She carries the same message she has long stood by: embrace age, say no to Botox and excessive surgery. For her, every line on her face is part of the story, a testament to the life she has lived. Financially, Sharon now holds an estimated net worth of $27 million, including her cozy West Hollywood home, a rich art collection, and smart investments. It isn't ostentatious wealth, but the hard-won result of a life rebuilt, time and again, after each fall. On the health front, Sharon maintains her balance with anti-seizure medication to manage the after effects of her stroke, alongside meditation and gentle physical exercise. She treats this as discipline, a way to stay strong and present for her three sons. As Sharon once put it, "I'm not trying to hold on to youth. I'm trying to live joyfully and fully with age." A simple philosophy, yet one of profound strength. In her personal life, Sharon continues to spark curiosity. In August 2025, rumors swirled about a romance with rapper Nelly, igniting lively debate. True to form, Sharon neither confirmed nor denied the speculation. She simply smiled for the cameras, maintaining that trademark air of mystery. The world, however, hasn't stopped honoring her. In 2024, she was named to the BBC 100 Women list of globally inspiring figures. In early 2025, she took the stage at the Golden Globes, not only as a legendary actress, but as a symbol of resilience in the face of adversity. In a recent speech, Sharon declared, "I still shine, but in a different way." And indeed, the light she carries now is not the cold glitter of fame, but the warmth of resilience, of motherhood, of art, and of quiet contributions to the community. Sharon Stone has turned the pain that once buried her into an endless source of inspiration for millions. Which brings us to the heart of her journey. Sharon Stone, the woman who has rewritten the very definition of resilience. From being Hollywood's ultimate sex symbol to nearly losing everything, family, career, even her life, Sharon has walked through depths few can imagine. But instead of breaking, she chose rebirth. Today, she is not only a movie star, but a devoted mother to three sons, an artist who pours her emotions onto canvas, and an activist fighting tirelessly for causes close to her heart. Looking back, Sharon Stone stands as living proof of human endurance. Tragedy does not define her, how she rose from it does. And the message she leaves us is both simple and powerful. I still shine, but in a different way. If Sharon could rise from unimaginable loss and reclaim her light, then so can you. Like, share, and drop a comment below. Tell us what her story means to you.